Hi, everybody. It's Barry McGuire here for Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education Series. It's the Monday main event. We meet up in our public Facebook group here on Mondays to talk about real estate, particularly creative real estate. We like to bring on, as we are going to do today, have our focus team on. Those are knowledgeable real estate investors who help us at our focus workshops. That next focus workshop is coming up, and the subject of today's Monday main event is agreements for sale, or AFS as we call them. That's coming up September 24th in Edmonton at the Delta South Hotel. We did our very first event in that hotel up on the upper floor. Beautiful room, beautiful view, over 10 years ago. And so we're back there for the first time in 10 years. Anyway, it's going to be an all-day event strictly about agreements for sale. So we really get to delve into it when we do a full day. So at this Monday main event, we have other experts on. Sean Impey's on today. Sean's an expert mortgage broker. Sometimes he comes on and is talking about finance. We have insurance agents on talking about the peculiarities of insuring when you are an investor. We've had accountants on. We've had foreclosing lawyers on. We've had folks who tell us how to develop. Tons of people all about investing, particularly creative real estate. And really what we're trying to do is help you all get better on your real estate journey. So that's who we are. That's what we do. I guess I should say something about me. I'm a real estate lawyer. I've been that real estate lawyer for just coming up on 47 years now. Still own about 20 investment doors with my wife, Donna, who produces our focus workshops. Still get involved in creative real estate deals, mostly on the investing side. And I'm being the money partner side now because I have enough doors. But that's what I do in my law practice at Field Law, is real estate all day, every day. So with that, let us bring on and bring in our various folks who are helping us out here today. And we're going to introduce them a little bit. And hey, John, Dean Van
Sorry.
And so that I don't know, happy guy whose face you first saw is Wayne Hillier. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, guys.
Wayne.
How's it going? Sorry for kicking you out there by accident.
Listen, you're running the show. You got the controls. Wayne runs these events for us. So, Wayne, just tell us a wee bit about yourself, who you are, what you and your wife Gabby are up to now, and then we'll let everybody else have that same shot at saying who they are, and then we'll carry on.
I'll keep it quick because we got a lot of people here today and we got a lot to talk about. Wayne Hillier, real estate investor for 10 years. Oh boy. I've done lots of different strategies: agreement for sales, rent to owns, a little bit of assignments, fix and flips, vendor take back mortgages, long-term buy and holds. I'd probably miss something, but Gabby and I, we coach real estate investors. We full-time real estate investors. That's about it. Edmonton, Alberta. Did I cover it all? More or less.
That's a pretty good snapshot of who you and Gabby are, I think. That's good. Mm-hmm. Wayne has a radio show on the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning till 7 every day, 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So listen to that. It's interesting. Next up, Sean Impey. Sean, give us the thumbnail sketch.
Well, I'm an investor. I'm also a real estate investor. Been doing that for 20 odd years. Got multifamily condos, single family, stuff like that. I bought properties on agreement with sale, and one of my partners is smiling there at us. I don't know if she's been introduced yet. But Andrea and I did some agreement for sales way back in the day and still got the properties. I did other agreement for sales myself buying, so I've seen all the things that can happen, the good things and the bad things with agreement for sales. So what else? Like I say, a mortgage broker. So we the thing with any creative financing is it's important to know what you're doing going in, but it's also probably more important to know what you're doing going out. So what's the exit plan? How are you going to get out of the agreement for sale? Is it can you actually get out of it so without losing a bunch of your money? So anyways, that's me. Agreement for sale. I'm not going to say an expert, but got lots of experience in that kind of stuff. So, and a mortgage broker for all kinds of properties.
All right, thanks, Sean. Well, since you mentioned Andrea, let's have Andrea next, and then we'll go to Dean, and then to Neil.
Hi, my name's Andrea Workington. I'm in Red Deer, Alberta, and I've done lots of creative deals over the years, agreements for sale being probably my top performer. And so I'm also a realtor and a real estate developer, and I'm looking forward to sharing with all of you.
Covers a lot of territory. Andrea could go on for, all these folks could, for way more than 2 minutes about what they've done. But that's a good summary. Dean, tell us about Dean.
My name is Dean Manti. I'm born and raised in Calgary, Alberta. I've been investing in real estate since 2005. I've done commercial, residential. I most recently got my realtor's license in residential, so I'm going to be investor focused, if you want to say that. And I've done a few deals, you could say, some fix and flips and some AFSs and et cetera, et cetera. So that's the nutshell.
That's the nutshell. And last but not least, Neil Tanguchi. It's a good thing we're all friends here.
I'm new here. I got this invite and I clicked on it. I'm not sure what's happening.
Well, you stick around.
Yeah, stick around. I can learn a thing or two.
Yeah.
Linda and I've been investing in real estate for over 20 years now. We full-time in the industry. We're probably, our forte has been rent to own. We've qualified 35 odd families to become homeowners through our program. We've bought 25 to 30 houses on agreement for sale. We just started, as a result of coming to your courses, going, well, why can't we do that? So we started doing fix and flip for the last 2 or 3 years and have a few of those on the go right now. So yeah, and occasionally you folks, Barry and Donna, are silly enough to give all of us a mic at your sessions, like the one coming up in September.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. All these folks will be there in September, adding their particular expertise to what they know and what we teach about agreements for sale. So it's great to get all those other perspectives. So thanks for that, Neil. Appreciate that. So this is our first of a series leading up to September 24th, where we want people to get an understanding of what an agreement for sale is, how it works, why it's extremely useful, and what's it like in this market, because every market is different, and the market we're in now wasn't the market we're in last January, February, March. So, one of our posts that we've done, and maybe this one is, what the heck is an agreement for sale? So let's go back to the top, and we'll start with Wayne. And if somebody asks you, Wayne, what the heck is an agreement for sale? And I don't mean exactly what you'd say if you were talking to a prospective AFS seller when you're sitting at the kitchen table. But if you had to explain what an agreement for sale is, how would you explain that to somebody? What do you say?
Well, considering I've heard your explanation of it so many times, I've almost got it nailed down. I can do a pretty decent Barry Maguire too, but I won't today. What it is, it's essentially a seller financing strategy, and where the seller becomes your bank, right? You're going to take possession of a property today, and the seller is going to carry seller financing for you for a period of time. And then at a later date, we will close out the agreed transaction.
Okay. That's, that's good. I know that over the years, we've gone back and forth amongst us on how do you explain an agreement for sale and what is an agreement for sale, but really think where we've all come to, at least on a very short explanation, is it's seller financing.
Mm-hmm.
It's seller financing. So any additions to that? Dean, let's go to you. What do you, somebody says, I hear you invest in agreements for sale. What are agreements for sale? What do you say?
Wayne did a really good job. Maybe the only thing I would add is that you're not necessarily doing it only with people that have paid their houses off in full. They're using the money that the bank has entrusted them with. So in cases where they don't have enough equity to sell without having to pay out of their own pocket, or perhaps if the property is derelict, like it's going to take too much work to get it up to market. There's a number of reasons that people would do so, but they don't have to own the property outright. They're essentially just utilizing those funds that have already been entrusted to them.
Yeah, that's it. That's an important part of it, that an AFS, seller financing, can work when the seller is fortunate enough to have a clear title, no mortgage, or he's got a smaller mortgage, or he's got a mortgage that's put the property underwater or close to being underwater. So it works in a lot of different circumstances. So Andrea and Neil and Sean, let's start with Andrea. Do you have any other add-ons to that, Andrea, before you start getting into the details with somebody?
No, the main thing is just to make it very simple for people to understand. So no big words.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, folks, is absolutely fabulous advice. When you attend our focus workshop September 24th, if you happen to do that, you'll hear Andrea do what she calls her kitchen table talk, and that is sitting down with a homeowner that's a prospective agreement for sale seller to you and having a chat with them about what the agreement for sale means for them. And I don't think the words agreement for sale pass Andrea's lips. She doesn't even say that. She explains things in a way that folks can understand who aren't into real estate all the time, and that makes sense for them and shows them how using an agreement for sale strategy can solve problems that they're facing. So maybe let's move on to some of the specific problems that people have. Neil's got his hand up. Yes, Neil.
I can add one thing to all the information. I was sitting there going, man, Wayne took a good one. Dean took, everyone's taking the good, easy ones. The one thing that I would add to that, though, for the folks watching this from an investor perspective, is what is the main attraction for all of you as investors and buying, is that agreement for sale involves none of your credit and therefore no qualifying. And in a lot of cases, very little of your cash. So a typical, we all know that if you're buying a revenue property, you need 20% down or short-term and a refinance, but certainly the 80% lending maximum type of thing. A lot of times, probably everyone in this group has bought a house via agreement for sale with no money down. So it is truly that no cash, no credit type deal. And that's the one thing to add. We certainly don't talk about that, like you mentioned, when we're sitting at the kitchen table. It's not a topic of conversation, but certainly for the audience of this webinar, it certainly is one of the major appeals of that tool to have in your belt, is that you can look at buying properties unconventionally without cash and credit.
Well, that's hugely important. And so if we turn our minds to why are agreements for sale useful, we're not talking to the potential AFS seller anymore. We're not trying to explain to them what an agreement for sale is, or even know ourselves. We understand that it's seller financing, but let's explore a little more on what what Neil just said. So if an agreement for sale is seller financing, if you've bought a property or plan to buy a property or a few properties, you can perhaps get a mortgage. If you're going to do it on your own, and as Neil said, with a conventional purchase, you have to put up 20% of the purchase price and then get a mortgage for the other 80%. So that's a hurdle for some folks who want to invest in real estate. If you want to buy a $400,000 property, 80% or 20% of 400,000 is $80,000. So you want to buy a property to start with, you got to save up 80,000 plus closing costs, plus you have to actually find a lender who will give you that mortgage. And that is a tougher call in today's market, today's banking market, where interest rates have been going up. Let's bring Sean in here. So Sean, you're a mortgage broker. You're tied in strongly or closely to what is happening in the lending market, obviously. Just give us the summary of where interest rates have gone in terms of how high they've risen and what that means for investors. I don't know if you can distill the last 6 months interest rate rises into what that means for investors who want to buy real estate, and what it takes for them to get a mortgage in today's interest rate environment. How's it changed?
Well, I had one more add-on about what the heck is an AFS, and I say it's just a normal real estate contract with a very long close. So that people seem to accept that you're just going to do a normal real estate contract with a long close. So when you close, people expect that when you close, that's when your mortgage is going to get paid out and stuff like that. You're going to get, and that the investor is just going to manage the property for you until it closes. So that seems to.
That's a good one.
Strike a better chord. So the long, I know we think it closes when you take possession, but really it technically doesn't close until you actually close out your agreement for sale. So
yeah. Well, that makes more sense to the seller that you're talking to. In their mind, closing means they're done with it, they get paid, and so they describe it as a normal real estate transaction.
And, very long and it may or may not include deposits. So,
right. Okay. Well, we'll add that in and remember to emphasize that on September 24th, because that's a good description. I don't think we know it's like that, but I don't think we've said that. So, all right. Thanks for that.
Interest rates have gone up 2.25 points since the heyday back in March is when they went up the first time there, and they've gone up, say, 2.25 points since then, which has really changed the qualification amount. So we used to have, we still do technically have the stress test where you have to qualify at the higher of the stress test rate or the contract rate plus 2%. So when interest rates started to rise, often if you went for a variable rate mortgage, those rates were still down below the stress test rate of 5.25. So you could qualify for a variable easier than you could qualify for a fix. And then if you did get your variable and decided that you really did want the fix, once you got it, banks will let you lock into something that you may have been right on the bubble of qualifying for fixed rates. So, my investor clients are still biting the bullet and going variable because a lot of them are reading the stuff on the web about potential recession, and there's talk about rates peaking out and maybe dropping again, which they historically have done after a high run up. Is they've dropped back down again. So if you are in a fixed rate, you don't get any relief from that rate. If you signed it at 5%, that's 5% for the next 5 years, whereas your variable, you may have got in, prime minus a half, a quarter, so you're maybe not a whole lot less than the fixed. But when rates bounce back, which I think they are, but that's only my non-economic economist. Yeah,
You're an
one of those,
economist. An
Yeah.
economist, Sean. An economist.
one of those guys. Yeah, and they're guessing too, but their guesses are sometimes better than my guess. I think rates are probably going to go down. I get calls every week from clients, should I lock in? Should I lock in? And saying, well, if you lock in today, the current fixed rate is still probably a 1 percentage point higher than what you're paying on your variable rate. And where's it going to go? I mean, there's predictions September it's going to go up again, because the feds in the States raised the rate again. So I don't know where it's going to stop. I mean, historically, variable has always been cheaper than fixed rates when you apply, and over the long run, we got spoiled at rates at
Yeah.
One
Definitely
prime
spoiled.
minus. They were giving away variable rates 0.99% at HSBC there for a while. I mean, just there was some conditions, but people were getting fixed rates at 1.6 or 7 in that range, and anybody who locked in for 5 years at that rate, I mean, they're better save your pennies for when the 5-year term is up, because your payment's going to probably go up, quite a bit, depending where
All right.
rates are
So,
at that
so what
time.
that means for our investors is that if they're looking to buy conventionally, it's going to cost them a lot more now to go and get a mortgage if they want to buy an investment property than it did back in March. And there's a chance it's going to be certainly going up for a while. Who knows where it's going to end up? But we'll go down to let's go to Dean here.
Did you guys want to answer that question? Because it was kind of relevant. There's a question on the page.
So I didn't even see that. Can you get your AFS for swap to a fixed rate if they are unavailable or on a variable? All right. Can you get your AFS seller to swap their current variable rate mortgage to a fixed rate? Sean, what's the answer to that?
Well, depends on what the terms are of the lender, but just about any lender will gladly put you into a fixed rate from a variable, so without any penalty or anything like that. So whether you want to do that, it maybe depends on the variable and what you see coming down the pipe, just as if it's no different than buying a property normally without the AFS involved. Where do you think rates are going, and you want to be fixed or variable? So
yeah,
I would say, why would you want to lock that in now unless you think fixed is going to go up another couple of points and you're a fixed rate type of person? And yeah, you could lock it in now, but I'd ride the variable wave and see where they go
at the time. But I mean, I think the point is the Facebook user is looking to know whether you can do that. And so, yes, you can, but it would be something that you would probably put into your AFS contract and financing schedule, that you wanted to have the ability to get the seller to swap the rates. So I think the answer is yes. Sean's point is, do you really want to do that? So we were going to move over to Dean and say, now, Dean, based on what Sean said and the rising interest rates and the fact that some of our investors maybe were having trouble qualifying before these rates went up, what does it mean for them? What does it mean for them to go out and look at AFS possibilities for people who have mortgages where they don't have to get a mortgage? There's a mortgage in place.
Yeah. So the positive there is that maybe these AFS sellers have already locked in to some of these rates that Sean was talking about. I mean, there may be a rate out there of 2.45 or whatever it may be that's been locked in. It's there for another couple of years, and depending on the term that you get on the AFS, you could obviously ride that out till the end of the term, and then you have it written in your agreement that at which point they would consult you before they renew it. And so typically you'll get a letter from the bank, or they will get the letter from the bank, and then I'll normally just have a conversation with them and just say, hey, if you don't mind selecting this one for me, that would be great. That's the best solution going forward. But you still have a certain amount of control, because they've sold it to you by way of AFS. So it's essentially you own the property without having to transfer the title and that mortgage for a predetermined amount of time. So,
well, yeah, and so folks, I think it's really important to see that being able to purchase property by way of AFS is an attractive proposition. Seller financing is almost always an attractive proposition if you can get the right terms. But if you're facing, getting a new mortgage at 4.5% or 4.75% versus getting your AFS at the seller's existing mortgage rate, you might even get one of those ones Sean was talking about, 0.99%. I mean, my goodness, that would be too much to hope for. But if you can get them in the high ones and low twos as opposed to 4.5 or higher, that is an amazing bit of seller financing that benefits you all the way to the bank. So let's go to Andrea and Neil, do a bit of a tag team on. Oh, hold on, Brandy's got a question here. Thank you, Donna. Is there a benefit to a seller to do an AFS on a property that is owned outright? Well, yes, there is. Dean, you touched on that. Let's go back to Dean because he touched on the notion of sellers who have clear title, no mortgaging, but they still might do seller financing. What's the benefit to a seller in that situation, Dean?
There could be some tax implications for one. In a lot of cases, and Barry, you would know this better, it may make more sense for them to do vendor take back, but I mean, there's some options for them. Maybe every situation is different. It's so hard to say why they would do that if they owned it outright, but ultimately you're finding out what the seller's pain point is, and you're just working to solve it. And if it's a win for them and it's a win for us, then we do business. And if it's not, then we move on and find a solution that's maybe better suited to them.
Okay. Well, I mean, that is certainly right. Likely you can help a seller defer some tax. If he's going to sell to you and have a tax bill, he can defer it for 5 years. You might be able to work out an interest rate for him that gives him income. Maybe the seller wants income and the interest rate he'll charge you is something that he's happy with. And, third thing is sometimes sellers get the price they want for trading terms. In a falling market, especially, sellers will sometimes just be fixated on the fact that their house used to be worth a certain amount of money. And the fact that the market says it's worth less now makes them unwilling to sell except at the old price, the older, higher price. And if they'll give you terms that let this deal work for you, you can sometimes pay them a higher price as long as they're your bank. So there are a number of reasons why a seller might entertain an AFS financing deal when they have a clear title property. So let's go back to Andrea and Neil, and I want you guys to do a little tag team on with the background comments that we've had so far. Let's talk about the market that we're in right now and what you see as investors in today's market as opposed to the much hotter market of, say, last, I don't want to put a time on it, April, March, February, January, late 2021. The market's different now. How do you see it, and what does that mean for AFS investors? Andrea, let's start with you.
I would say that people are certainly motivated, especially if they were thinking they were going to sell their house when it was hotter in the spring and now things have cooled off. I think people are a little more motivated, especially if they're a tired landlord.
Yes, tired landlords. That's a big one. Neil, what do you think about the market environment?
I agree, Barry, that right now for investors, there will be more opportunities coming up as a result of the market just tapering somewhat. I think, quite frankly, the sales volume locally for us in the Calgary-Airdrie area hasn't been as dramatically down and prices down the way the press are making it out to be. aka what Toronto and Vancouver are doing.
Right.
But certainly it's put some fear into people's minds that way. And as the expression goes, the time to be fearful is when others being greedy, and be greedy when they're being fearful. So with people being fearful about what's happening right now, the ability to provide a solution to someone that says, typically with an AFS, there's no finance condition. And if you're going to put a property inspection condition into an AFS, it's something that can be waived very quickly. So if you're going to actually, you don't have to, as a seller, the benefit would be that their property is not tied up for 3 weeks, waiting and hoping that conditions get waived without getting beaten up on a property inspection, that sort of thing. So yeah, in this market, there's definitely some shifts, and that creates opportunities for all of us as investors.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are opportunities in every market, but remember, folks, this is about seller financing. So it's always about why would the seller want to be your bank, and when there is when the market has turned a bit fearful, when rates are going up, and there's talk of recession, and the world political climate is shaky in lots of different areas. A lot of things frighten people, and tired landlords are motivated to sell. Frightened landlords are motivated to sell, and there's more motivation in the kind of interest rate environment we have right now, in the market we have right now, and the geopolitical world that we're facing. So what we're looking for as creative real estate investors, and particularly investors who want to use the agreement for sale strategy, the AFS strategy, is we are looking for sellers who are interested in being our bank. When times are booming and sellers can sell to anybody, and they pound a for sale sign in the lawn, and they don't even have a realtor, and they have 10 competing offers in 2 days, that's a really tough point for you as a creative real estate investor to go to that seller and go, have you heard about this thing called, or whatever your particular pitch is? It's hard to have sellers who can sell to anybody, basically, listen to you, where you want them to be your bank, because they don't have to be a bank in a market like that. They can just get their money, and probably more money than they thought, and carry on and be done with their property. So problem markets are fertile ground for creative real estate investors. And it's not that we wish trouble. We don't wish trouble on anybody. And in fact, we are really specific in what we teach, and all of our focus workshop leaders on today understand this and believe this and act like this, which is, we look to be, as Neil Taniguchi said, problem solvers. We want to solve sellers' problems. And there are more problems to be solved in a tougher market, and that's what we are in right now. So let's talk about some of those problems. If folks listening who haven't really delved into the AFS strategy and don't kind of really know how it might work, let's go through our folks here and our focus workshop leaders, and let's talk about the problems that sellers are facing. Maybe your favorite problem to solve for a seller. Let's move back up to the redoubtable Wayne Hillier. And Wayne, what's your favorite AFS situation where if a seller has an issue, what's the favorite issue you're looking to solve?
Can I be honest?
No.
Lie to us.
I don't like any of them, if we're being completely honest. Most of the problems that we're solving, someone's going through something, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's never good for them. So I mean, it's hard for me to be honest and open and say that, like, oh, my favorite one's when they get divorced. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think it's hard. It's like picking a kid. I don't know. It's hard to pick your favorite one. I'd say any opportunity where I can help someone out of a situation that they're in. I can give examples. One might be job loss.
Job loss. Okay.
Job loss would be an example of where someone could afford the mortgage payments before and now they can no longer. They have a payment coming up. They don't have a job lined up. It's going to be, you get a new job. I don't know. It's been a while since I've got a new job, but like you work a couple weeks and you're like, oh, the paycheck's supposed to be here on Friday. And then they're like, oh no, we kind of backdate it and you'll get a paycheck in 3 weeks from now. And you're like, I got a mortgage payment to pay. So there's a lot of people in situations like that. Where they just need out, and or maybe they got a new job and then they can no longer afford it anymore because they just got their mortgage renewal and the interest rates are 3% higher than they were before. Right?
Okay. I hope I didn't give the impression that we're sitting here rubbing our hands with glee and going, we just love it when sellers are up to their ears in that's not it. It's the problem you're best capable of solving that you think fits for the AFS strategy is really what we're saying. And you told us that it's, job loss is one. Neil, what about you? Do you have one where you think you are a better problem solver, or the strategy lends itself for the way you do AFS?
Maybe what I'll say, Barry, is that the most common one that we see, a very common situation, is one where there's a house where renovations have been started but not completed, or in the case of the tired landlord where they've had those tenants who did the $10,000 and $15,000 and $20,000 worth of damage, and the folks just do not have the horsepower to get that property properly renovated to get back on the market to either sell it or re-rent it. And so they become stuck, and they may be gainfully employed, they may be everything, they just don't have a staying power fund that is big enough to allow them to move forward with the property. And that's I think what we see the most of is where there's a property that needs work, and for the value of what the repairs are, most realtors are going to come in and tell them, oh, your house needs $30,000 worth of renovations, but we can't list it for $30,000 under market value, which really then becomes a double negative for them. Not only do they need to spend money, but if they don't have the money to spend, they're going to get less. And that's where we can sometimes come in there and get it done by virtue of our contacts for less than the average person would pay, and also that we can solve their problem for them at the same time. So that does create that win-win.
As you were saying that, I was just putting myself in the shoes of the owner, the landlord, who had all these great ideas. They checked on the net. They saw the fabulous renovations they could do. Bill said to Susie, why don't we be our own general contractor? We can do this. It's just a matter of, and so they get started on it and discover that it's way more complicated than they thought. And as Neil said, they're kind of halfway through the renovation, have discovered that it's way more difficult, way more expensive, way more time consuming, way more frustrating, and they're not very good at it. The tradespeople they've hired are eating their lunch because they don't know how to handle trades, and they're now in despair because the house is torn apart and it's weeks and thousands of dollars until it's put back together. Or they're that landlord who rented to their tenant and never went back to inspect to see what the place looks like. And when they do finally go to inspect, there's $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of damage because the tenant was a terrible tenant. Think how horrible that would be. Put yourself in the shoes of that landlord when they come to the realization that they're just not capable of getting this done. They don't have the talent. They don't have the resources. They've talked to other experts about how to extricate themselves. How are we going to get out of this? And there's no way out. There's no way out. To talk to an AFS investor who says, you know what, I can solve this problem for you. I can help with this torn apart house that is not done, or this house that is not yet torn apart, but will have to be torn apart. When you talk to an owner and say, I can solve this problem for you, let me tell you, when they've talked to everybody else who says, gee, tough situation. Yeah, I don't know what you're going to do. You show up and say, I can help you. You are a savior. You are a savior. You solve problems. You do it in a win-win way, because we always play for win-win. We don't beat people up. And that seller will be eternally grateful for you. So that's what Neil thinks is a good place to find, or has found lots of his and Linda's agreements for sale. Andrea, do you have any?
Andrea had to scoot.
Oh, Andrea had to scoot. She is a busy girl, busiest girl, I think, in Alberta. She's doing more things than. All right, let's move down to Dean, and then we'll get Sean's view. Where do you like the agreement for sale slot, Dean?
I like the agreement for sale for helping people with foreclosure. A lot of people don't know the foreclosure process, and I've again kind of hung on to Neil's coattails on following the foreclosure process. But if you're able to stop that process and bring everything current, the courts are mandated to not put somebody into a foreclosure situation if at all possible. And so in a lot of cases, you can make that an AFS and ride that out while you fix and flip it, or if you do want to hold on to it for a certain amount of time or whatever. But I mean, Sean will attest to this. If you get a foreclosure on your credit, you're pretty much done. It's very, very difficult to ever get a mortgage again. So I like that aspect of it, is that you're stopping something that would be so detrimental to somebody for who knows how long. So I like that process of it, and kind of giving people a fresh start. So.
Well, that certainly fits with what we've been talking about, which is solving people's problems and turning it into a win-win. When somebody is facing foreclosure, either pre-foreclosure where it's coming, not quite there yet, or it's already happened, they are in a world of trouble. That's hugely stressful. All of these problem situations are stressful, but when you're being foreclosed on and you're served with legal documents, and some big downtown law firm is threatening to take your house away and do it fast, even though they might not be able to, that's what the paperwork says. And you can't make your payments, and you're thinking you might be tossed out on your ear. And sometimes you'll have some equity in the property that looks like it might be disappearing, and sometimes you won't. But if someone like Dean comes along and goes, I think I can solve your foreclosure problem and help both of us, would that be interesting to you? I mean, people grab onto Dean like he's a life preserver, like he's the guy who's going to save what they're going through, and their spirits are lifted. They're ready to be extremely cooperative. That's something about AFS is when you are solving people's problems, you can usually set up the deal in a way that's advantageous to you, not that it's disadvantageous to the seller, and because, as we said, we don't take advantage. We do play for win-win. If anybody can hear my cat who just came in and wants immediate attention.
She's on my lap.
Yeah, she'll walk across the keyboard here soon, I'm sure. If you can say that to somebody who's facing a foreclosure, think what a relief that is for them. Think how it's been sleepless nights. So they've agonized over how this is all going, and the foreclosure lawyers won't talk to them. There's just, everything is black. And if you can help them out of a foreclosure, which can be a bit of a complicated process, and you have to learn how a foreclosure works. But if you can do that and solve their foreclosure problem, it's a great way to get an agreement for sale property. So that's job loss, that's the renovation gone bad, or the bad tenant renovation that needs to be done. That's foreclosures. Sean, let's move over to you. Do you have a particular AFS problem situation that you like to solve?
Well, some of the other ones may involve this as well, but it's when they need a snorkel because they're underwater. So that comes for a variety of reasons. Maybe they got transferred someplace and they got themselves into a mortgage and bought it with 5% down. So time they pay CMHC insurance, they're 98.5% financed on this property, and the realtor, $500,000 property, the realtor says, I want $20,000 when my GST is added in. And And the bank says, "Oh, you're in a fixed mortgage, and oh, guess what? Your penalty is $20,000. So now you got to write a $40,000 check for a property that you only have maybe $5,000 to $10,000 of equity max. So you're $35,000 in the hole. So, and in those situations, it might be fairly early in the mortgage too. So it gives you time to stretch out your AFS over a longer period of time as well. So underwater is a good one to look at, and that could be for other reasons, like you said, it could be a job loss, but more often it's a transfer or some reason they need to sell this property, and they didn't get maybe some good advice up front of what kind of mortgage to get into as well for penalties and what have you. So.
Yeah, underwater or close to underwater is good. So, folks, if you're listening, Sean, had an example of somebody bought a house for $500,000 and they got CMHC financing, which means they put down 5%, and the CMHC insurance fee is another 2.5%. So by the time they buy this house, it's financed, as Sean said, 97.5%. And so if the market twitches a little bit, even if it doesn't twitch, if the value is still 500,000, if they have to get out of this house and this mortgage, as Sean said, it'll cost you 40 grand in payout penalties and in realtor's commission to sell that property. 40 grand to sell your property. Not you're getting any money out of it. Remember, we're sellers here. When sellers sell, they usually expect to get money. In this case, they're going to get nothing and have to possibly write a $40,000 check. And Donna, what you're waving at me there? Veldon's comment. So I'll just finish what we're talking about here with Sean on the underwater side of things. So think about that, folks. If you're a seller who wants to sell for whatever reason, doesn't matter, divorce, job loss, transfer, you have to sell, and you talk to your realtor, and in 10 minutes you understand, I can't sell this property unless I write a check for $40,000. When someone comes along and says, I can think I've got a solution. How would you like to sell your house and not have to pay that big penalty to your lender or pay a realtor $20,000 in commission? How would you like to not have to pay that $40,000? They're all of a sudden, again, grateful to be talking to you. But let's move over to what Veldon Palm says. Veldon, it is important to remember that we as investors did not create the problem situation. Good point, Veldon. It's not, we're solving, we didn't create. Typically, it's a problem situation. Yes, job loss, divorce, needs too much renovation, don't know how to handle things, mortgage rate effect, and therefore stress on family budget and other calamities. Those are the things that are happening to people. Yes, it's a problem. We provide the way out, the white light of solution that comes out of their late night prayers. Be proud of your abilities to create the solution for them. That's the juice and the feel-good rush of the ... AFS strategy, fill in the blank, helping sellers. Well put, Veldon. You've expanded on what we've been talking about here and recognized that we didn't create this problem, but we can offer solutions. And so one of the key drivers of AFS is to be a person who has real, valid, forward-looking, positive solutions that take a seller from the depths of despair, where they often are, to a point where they see an exit where an exit didn't exist, and to do it in a way that doesn't take advantage of the seller, and to do it in a way that's a win-win. What the solution you provide is good for the seller, but it's also good for you. We're in business here. Yes, we're going to play for win-win. Yes, we are not advantage takers. But on the other hand, we have real estate businesses that we are running, and whatever we're doing has to make sense for us. And it has to be a good investment for us, or we can't do it. We can't help everyone. So those are a few of the situations and the problems that we can help troubled sellers with. And there are more. There's others that we talk about, and we do talk about them in detail at our focus workshop. We'll certainly be doing that on September 24th when we have all day to explore a lot of case studies. It's not just theory. We dig down into actual deals and analyze them, who the folks were, what specifically did they have for problems, what specifically were the numbers, how did those numbers fit together, and why did that work for one of our focus team leaders or one of our investors. So
I got one more comment, Barry, before
yeah,
we
go ahead.
carry on. So if they did have an underwater property because they put 5% down and aren't going to be able to pay the realtors and the penalty, they probably don't have that $40,000 either, right, up front. So
yes,
one of the issues on a property that's break even or underwater or something like that is at the end of the 5 years, how much you paid down the mortgage, can you get that 20% back in equity or something so you can qualify for that mortgage. So very high ratio agreement for sales maybe have a little different issue than somebody who just needs to get out. Maybe they're at 80% loan to value today versus very high rate. Your exit plan has to be obviously in every situation, but maybe a little more prudent on your low down type of underwater mortgage.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And folks, that's one of the reasons that when you're working in the creative real estate area, you need a mortgage broker who understands how these creative strategies fit together. And there are lots of great mortgage brokers out there, but most of them don't work in the creative real estate sphere. You got to really know what you're doing in order to help people exit an agreement for sale down the road when it's time to pay the seller. You got to really know what you're doing. And so you need a guy like Sean to advise you and also to maybe help you going into it. Sean consults on these things, and what you would pay Sean for a consultation, I'm telling you, is worth every penny. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as you move forward. You got
that's my fee for a consultation. So
well, just in case Sean ever charges you anything, it will be worth every penny.
Yeah.
Right now,
I got to throw in my little bit about the savior. I thought you were the savior when you got the halo over your head there.
I like that. Donna says, "How are you? How is it for City?" And I always go, "It's just fine. I'm perfect now." Angelic, Wayne said. Well, what's an old angel? Well, angels are those young cherubic things. But sorry, Donna. Sorry.
Stay focused.
Stay focused. Stay focused. Come on, Bear. Come on. Come on. Snap, snap. All right. Let's get some closing thoughts. I mean, we are going to do a few more of these before September 24th, just to give people a bit more information on what an agreement for sale is, and hopefully to give them some enough understanding of AFS so they can see the tremendous value that it would have in their in their investing career, and have them come out and be with us on September 24th. So we're going to do more of these, but let's do a wrap up today, and let's aim it at people who are listening and who are just dipping their toe in the AFS water. They might have heard a little bit about it before. They might be hearing about it for the first time today, and we've just barely scratched the surface, I know. But I'd like to get a closing comment from each of you. We'll start with Wayne on what folks maybe should be thinking about as they look forward to our next session. What should they be thinking about as they go, AFS, am I interested in this? What do you think, Wayne? What would you say to people?
I would say that if you were like me when I got started, within the first couple of years, you're consuming as much free content as possible. And, maybe you get some level of success. Maybe you buy your own property with your savings, or you get your first joint venture partner, and you do your first fix and flip. But I think all of us, every real estate investor, at least the ones that I know, we all kind of hit that roadblock around that third or fourth property, around that second or third year, and you just, you don't have enough experience. No one's taking you seriously. This is the strategy that I implemented. This is the course that I took right at that moment. I talk about it all the time. And literally, I hit that roadblock, and then this is what kind of catapulted me over. I didn't step over the roadblock. It catapulted me over, and it built up our business. And we've been using this strategy and all the other strategies that you teach ever since. So, I'm living proof that it's a great strategy for something like that. And if that's something that you're experiencing and you're stuck, I would strongly consider giving it a look and coming to the course. And I promise you're going to learn something, and it's going to blow your mind, and it's going to help you get more properties.
That's good. I mean, I think that's wonderful for people to hear who are considering coming back to listen to another one of our sessions, and maybe already starting to think about, should I just sign up for September 24th and just get that done, which maybe you should, for you to consider. Dean, what do you think? Do it.
I'm a proof is in the pudding type of guy. So I'll just say this. I came to this exact course. It was AFS only in 2019 with Barry. I did my first AFS deal in November of 2019, and I just sold that place 2 months ago and made $82,000. So, I don't know. Do you want to put out a little bit of cash to learn something you don't know and be an expert in it? I'll let the viewers make their own choice. And that's not my only AFS deal either.
No,
I've made a lot of money in AFS deals.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Okay. That's short, sweet, and I think Money Talks folks will recognize why that is a great comment from Dean. Let's move on to Sean, and then we'll finish with Neil.
Well, it's 82,000, probably a pretty good ROI in what you had to invest in it, if anything. So good there. I would say don't make it overly complicated when you're talking to somebody who's a potential AFS seller. So like Andrea does her kitchen table talk, if you start getting into long conversations with people about the mechanics and everything else, and if you start off calling an agreement for sale, then you might lose them right off the bat. So keep it KISS, you heard that expression?
Yes.
And the other thing is, just because it's a zero money or a very low money down deal that on the AFS doesn't make it a good deal. So just like any purchase, you got to do your math and figure it out and find out whether it's a good deal for you at the end of the day.
All right. Thanks for that, Sean. Neil, closing words going to you.
I think for folks who are maybe not 100% sure about whether it's worth coming, the results that we have seen over the years, we're one of them. Wayne kind of stole my word, but literally it was the rocket fuel for us that helped us move from being buy and hold landlords with jobs to full-time real estate investors, because our cash flow went up immensely with agreement for sale. We'll discuss cash flow at the course and how that works for you. But I think the message for people who are on the fence today is you're capable. You can do this. It is not rocket science, but knowledge is everything. And there are deals that probably we've all looked at after taking the course. We went, oh man, if I had only known that there was an opportunity there. And once you add that tool to your belt, it is such a powerful tool that, as Sean said, your return on investment, you're investing in yourself. It's not an expense, this course. It's an investment in your future, and what it can do and how it can change your world and your life is unbelievable. And if you're looking for something like that, one day to spend there and what you could realize in results by coming is amazing. You're capable.
You're capable. Well, folks, God darn it. Donna, as soon as we're done here, let's get a look at our funnels and see what's come in. I'm dying to do an AFS. Let's get going here. I'm so excited. All right. Well, listen, thanks everyone for showing up. Wayne, Dean, Sean, Neil, and Andrea, who have to buzz off, but is always contributing. Great with having you guys on. Different perspectives, different comments. We're going to be doing it again, and hopefully we'll all be back on together again over the next while to deal with other aspects of agreements for sale, and hopefully just try and lay it out for our listeners, what it is, how it works, why it's worthwhile, how they can help people, show them that they are capable, they can do it, and they can make a really good dollar doing it. So on that very positive note, we're going to sign off for tonight. We'll be back another time talking AFS, and we'll delve into more issues and move it all forward, aiming at September 24th. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.